Welcome to the Workology podcast, a podcast for the disruptive workplace leader. Join host Jessica Miller-Merrill, founder of Workology.com, as she sits down and gets to the bottom of trends, tools, and case studies for the business leader, HR, and recruiting professional who is tired of the status quo. Now here's Jessica with this episode of Workology.
Even before the pandemic, it was a challenge to shop and learn about HR technology and services. I know you feel it too. COVID has thrown another wrinkle into things, and now Delta has thrown even another wrinkle into things with conferences and events maybe sort of opening, hopefully in the near future. At Workology, we reach 800,000, yes, 800,000 HR and workplace leaders every single month with our newsletter, podcast, and online resources and training at Workology.com. I have been getting lots of requests from many of you asking for ways to connect with different companies that will give you the opportunity to research that organization and learn about them before signing up for a demo, being added to their mailing list, or picking up your phone. This episode is part of a series on the Workology podcast called HR Tech Insights, and it's sponsored by Upskill HR and ACE the HR exam. It's an opportunity for you, the HR leader, to learn quickly about different companies, their solutions, the company sizes and verticals they serve, and we serve up a quick case study for you of the problems they solve. Think of it like walking the expo floor without the free swag and cocktails. I know I miss it too. The good news is that there's no travel or expense involved. Each episode of the HR Tech Insights podcast series features 3 7 to 10 minute interviews with a different HR tech and service provider. You get 3 interviews, 3 opportunities to connect and learn about different HR technology companies in each interview. So let's go ahead and get started with our first interview, shall we? Our first special episode guest of HR Tech Insights is John Borland. He's the Chief Executive Officer for Perceptics. John is accountable for the daily operations of the company. He oversees performance measures for the delivery team and plays an active role in setting the tone and direction of the business. John dedicates a significant portion of his time towards paving the way for future system enhancements to meet emerging client needs. He's also instrumental in fostering employee alignment through the business, allocating resources to meet strategic goals, improving efficiency, and maximizing quality. John brings deep technical know-how regarding the system, which is coupled alongside strong leadership skills. Combined with his academic background in business management, John provides a constant source of thought leadership. The sheer number of clients John has worked with means that he brings unique perspectives on the industry. You're going to see. For example, John has partnered with companies such as Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, Dell, NBC Universal, Microsoft, and more. Hi, John. Welcome to the Workology podcast. Can you tell me a little bit about Perceptics and the problem you solve for human capital leaders?
Well, I'd love to, Jessica. Thanks for having me on the podcast today. Perceptics was an organization that was started back in 2003, and it began with a very singular purpose, which was to give every employee a voice within an organization. And what we've been doing for 18 years is continuing to build both technology capabilities as well as service capabilities to ensure that large, particularly large global complex organizations can have the tools necessary to ensure that every individual in that organization has a voice. And not only that, Jessica, but also that the organizations themselves can achieve greater outcomes. And so our vision statement as a company is to enable the world's leading organizations to leverage both their people data and their business data to achieve both a greater employee experience as well as greater business outcomes.
I love that. It's a win-win for everyone. I wanted to ask you, what company size and or vertical do you find yourself helping customers the most?
Yeah, that's a great question. We certainly are set up to be able to help a lot of different companies through this employee listening and people analytics challenge. One of the things we learned early on at Perceptics was that there is no one size fits all in this particular space. And so every organization has a unique set of needs they're trying to solve for in their people analytics program. And so we have designed the technology and the platform capabilities to be able to be quite flexible in terms of the kinds of companies we support. That being said, where we have certainly found our sweet spot as an organization is in those larger companies, call it 3,000 to 5,000 employees and greater. And that tends to be a size of organization that has, again, the level of complexity, the level of requirements necessary to be able to listen at scale within those types of organizations.
Can you share a recent case study or example of how you've helped your customers in that, company size listen at scale?
Yeah, I certainly can. And if we think back to the last, call it 18 months, our world has changed dramatically in so many respects. And so if we think about the need for employee listening and quite frankly, the business imperative it is now with all the changes that have come at organizations over the last 18 months, there are so many examples of different organizations that have been able to lean on the Perceptics platform and technology. And I've got just a couple of examples that come to mind. One of them, early days in the pandemic. So back in April or May of 2020, we had a large retail organization, over 100,000 employees, that was really needing to, in a very quick way, understand what employees were needing during this, again, early days of the pandemic. A lot of confusion still, a lot of uncertainty about what was happening here. And so we were able to create a listening program for this organization within a matter of hours and get it launched out into the field. And within 2 to 3 days, this company was really beginning to understand the specific pain points of their employees, be it around work schedule, be it around benefits, health and wellness benefits that were being offered, and other things within this employee base that were coming up. And so that company, within 48 to 72 hours, was able to come out with a communication and really begin to alter some of their company policies and their company stances in light of this COVID pandemic. And we saw an immediate, overnight, literal increase in satisfaction scores there. And so that was a really neat example of, again, where in the midst of a very, what I would say, confusing and scary time, we were able to leverage that platform to get those kinds of insights. And then I think about another example more recently, about a 30,000 person global organization, employees in upwards of 80 plus countries, really looking for a solution to listen at scale. And what I mean by that is they were trying to put together a program they hadn't been able to do in the past, which would enable them to do both listening and action at scale across, again, a very distributed global organization. And so we worked with them to put together a program in place that they were able to launch and deploy and be able to get the insights they were looking for. And they had a couple of really key business imperatives around leadership and also around diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, which is a topic we spend a lot of time surveying right now and listening to and assessing. And the way they were able to build that program, we were able to support them with that. They saw some of the greatest increases ever in their company history around leadership and DE&I. And it was just a great opportunity and example of how this organization was able to, again, listen at scale in a very complex way and be able, in a bespoke way, I should say, and be able to gather those feedback, gather those insights, and turn those into specific, meaningful action that the employees were looking for within that organization.
Can you tell me maybe another specific way you've impacted the business? You mentioned about helping meet business imperatives.
So there's another example that comes to mind. This was a global retail organization in the grocery retail business. And this was an organization that, as we looked at all of their data across all of their different retail outlets, we began to compare and contrast store performance and in-store sales to some of their engagement and DE&I data. And what we were able to find is that in the stores with lower in-store sales performance, we saw lower scores consistently across a couple of key engagement metrics. And so what we helped this organization do was really understand those drivers of those engagement elements that were lowest in those lower performing sales stores. And we put forth an action plan and a customized dashboard for all of those store managers to be able to understand what drives those metrics. And within a matter of months, we were able to help increase the metrics that we knew drove some of that in-store performance. And sure enough, they were able to show higher in-store sales performance for those particular retail outlets as we began to focus on the things that really matter to those employees around those key engagement and those key diversity, equity, and inclusion metrics that they were tracking within that particular organization.
Awesome. I love the DEI focus because that is on so many HR leaders' minds right now. And I know myself and our listeners, we would love to learn more about the work that you're doing, John, at Perceptics. Where can people go to connect with you and the company?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. We've got a lot of content, Jessica, on our website. And so we've got blogs that we publish every week. We've got webcasts that we host. We've got other opportunities to connect with us on a number of different fronts. So I would encourage folks to come to our website at perceptics.com, go ahead and subscribe to our blogs and subscribe to our other channels that we have there on that site. And that would be a great place to begin. And certainly, by all means, we would love to connect with you in person. So please reach out, and would love to chat with you and learn a bit more about what you're looking for, and talk a bit more about ways we think we can be helpful.
Amazing. Thank you, John. And we'll include your LinkedIn profile and then ways for folks to be able to connect with Perceptics and the website. So thank you again.
Awesome. Thank you, Jessica. Really appreciate it.
You are listening to the Workology podcast sponsored by Upskill HR and Ace the HR Exam. This episode is part of our HR Tech Insights series, where we connect you with 3 different HR tech and/or service providers in a single episode. Let's get back to our next interview. Personal and professional development is essential for successful HR leaders. Join Upskill HR to access live training, community, and over 100 on-demand courses for the dynamic leader. HR Research credits available. Visit upskillhr.com for more. I'm so excited to welcome our next guest, who is Ann Fulton. She's the co-founder and CEO of Fuel 50. Ann is one of the brains behind the Fuel 50 career path software product, around which she has built an impressive, now multinational corporation, which she manages and directs. Her success in this field has been predicated upon some 20 years of professional experience as a registered organizational psychologist, executive career coach, and corporate employment strategist. She has extensive experience working with Fortune 100 companies such as CVS, Verizon, Facebook, Coca-Cola, and many more. Ann has presented her research on career agility and engagement trends in New York, London, and Sydney, earning her widespread recognition and industry acclaim. Hi, Ann. Welcome to the Workology podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about Fuel 50 and the problem you solve for human capital leaders?
Sure, we would love to share that with you. So Fuel 50 is a talent marketplace, and we're helping people connect to opportunities. As per Airbnb or Uber, we connect people to a future, creating a roadmap for people and their future. So connect to jobs, to vacancies, to projects, to mentors, and to learning to create these personalized career journeys. And of course, we're delivering talent intelligence back into the hands of our HR leaders who are focusing on building out the future of work in their organization and a reskilled population.
I love that. Skills and experiences are so important right now, even though so many of us are working still from home and remotely. I wanted to ask you, what company size and or vertical do you find yourself helping customers in the most?
Yes, so we actually do support organizations from anything from 1,000 headcount right through to the 100,000 organization size. So we are able to operate at scale for these organizations. And we've had really amazing success in a number of verticals. So anything technology related. So we've got a lot of tech companies that are utilizing us, and often they're scaling fast. And a growth trajectory. We also support fin services and health services. Biotech and pharma is a real trending sector for us as well.
I love that. And I wanted to ask you if you could share a recent case study or example, maybe of how you've helped your customers in one of these verticals.
Yeah, so I think, I mentioned reskilling before, and without question, that is a burning agenda item for many people leaders around the world today. And one of our top 10 biotech companies have been successful in creating reskilling at scale across their organization. So they were the first to come up with a COVID-19 test last year. They were using our Fuel Gigs marketplace, which was connecting people to projects and job opportunities, rapid redeployment for their workforce into the front line to be part of the COVID defense. But I think the real success story sitting behind this one was the fact that they also, in the 6 months leading up to COVID-19, they'd done 375,000 reskilling actions taken across their workforce. So this was a workforce that was ready, armed and able and prepared for an unknown future. So they were delivering this true agility, but also employee-driven reskilling, which is, I think, the way that we need to deliver it today. You know, classroom learning is probably a thing of the past, even blended, right? That's historic. That was last decade. Whereas an employee going on their own reskilling journey in a purposeful, strategic way to match to the organization skills demand, as well as their own personal career growth story.
Can you tell me about some more maybe specific ways, I'm thinking metric driven, numbers driven, that you have helped impact the business of your customers?
Great question. Thank you. I'm thinking about, the great escape is what we're calling it at the moment, as where we've got people starting to look outside their organization for other opportunities, through all sorts of frustrations with the current work situation. And Fuel 50 has been partnering with a myriad of organizations across the globe, and at aggregate, we're able to impact employee retention by 60%. So where Fuel 50 is being utilized, where people can see a pathway to their future, they can see opportunities, they're connected to those learning journeys, we're able to drop employee attrition from an average of 24% down to an average of 15%, where Fuel 50 is being utilized as part of this opportunity marketplace. So we can significantly help organizations avoid this great escape as people are, potentially moving on beyond their organization. So we've seen that as a very repeatable experience across multiple clients and those verticals that I was talking about before. So the finance sector, the tech sector, which is obviously experiencing a huge tech, talent crunch right at the moment, and also that healthcare sector.
And those sectors that you're mentioning are some of the more costly to lose. I mean, it's not like I'm hiring a cashier at a grocery store or a restaurant worker. These are potentially thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in terms of lost productivity when you don't have somebody in that position.
Yeah, the costs of, losing talent, are no less than they've ever been. And I think the competition for talent, the talent war is as extreme as it's ever been. And I think particularly in the tech sector, we're seeing that at the moment where, the cost of recruitment is skyrocketing as people are trying to, hold on to their talent and make sure that, they're not losing talent to the competition, particularly if they've got this wonderful, value of learning. So to us, it's not just about the cost of acquiring that talent, but it's also increasing the value of that talent to your organization. So, increase productivity, and increase value to the organization because through having a skilled, talented worker that you can retain.
I love it. I'm all about upskilling for sure. I know our listeners are interested and want to learn more about the work that you're doing at Fuel 50. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about the organization?
So come to fuel50.com. You'll find a lot about our talent marketplace, but more importantly, you'll find some stories around the work that we're doing in our client organizations. So, follow our blog. We're publishing research all of the time, and we've got our talent mobility research coming out next week, which has got some fascinating insights on what we've seen over the last 12 months and this return to work and what we're going to be experiencing in the decade ahead. So if you want to find out what best practice looks like, fuel50.com is a great place to start that learning. Join our community.
We will link to Fuel 50 in our show notes, as well as your LinkedIn profile if people want to connect with you and take a look at your background and expertise and experience.
Thank you so much, Jess.
Our last and final guest is Anastasia Neddersen. Anastasia's aspirations are to increase collective team intelligence in any group environment that relies on teams to get innovative work done. And what team does not? She's set on a journey to create accessible AI-driven games to help teams build stronger connections and become exceptional at achieving their goals. These are intelligent games that extract behavioral data in real time about the team and support their learning new skills and behaviors by utilizing adaptive learning. Her company is called Wisnik. Hi, Anastasia. Welcome to the Workology podcast. Can you tell us a little bit about Wisnik and the problem you solve for human capital leaders?
Of course. Hi, and thank you so much for having me. So Wisnik is really solving the problem of poor engagement and dysfunctional dynamics in the workplace. And we believe they're strongly correlated with high turnover in employees. And so that's an additional thing that we are addressing. And it is a very costly problem. It's estimated to cost about $500 billion in US alone. And it's interesting that traditionally, this problem has been addressed using team effectiveness surveys, personality tests, such as Myers-Briggs and DISC that probably most of us familiar with. And even when the employee leaves, there's exit interviews and, of course, the team building activities. And Wisnik is not trying to necessarily replace those, especially the social components of team building and culture building within organizations. But we are really addressing this problem in two ways. One of them is the remote teams, and so the ability to have something fun and social for remote teams. And two is having the data-driven behavioral analysis of the team. So as they play, we extract some of those metrics on their communication patterns and some of the dynamic things in their team to A, bring that awareness within the team, and B, to eventually start bringing and kind of creating some of the behaviors that lead towards better outcomes for the team.
I love this. It's a different way to measure employee engagement and team dynamics.
Yes, absolutely. And I think, you're probably familiar with the surveys. And for me, I've taken a bunch of surveys in my kind of corporate life. And I was just fascinated by the statistic that majority of people do not even believe that that's an accurate representation of reality, right? And then even more disturbing statistic is that the team cultures that kind of struggle the most, where there's that dysfunction already present, the participation really suffers, sometimes as little as like 10%. And so I think that's kind of also an interesting thing to be aware of, that we're trying to measure what the engagement is within the organization and what are some of the challenges and problems. But the ones that kind of need the more help are not participating.
What company size and or vertical are you finding helping customers in the most right now?
Yes, we are targeting mid-sized companies. So that allows us more of that flexibility as we going through our beta pilots and evolving the tool to really support the different types of organizations. And so we found that mid-size space kind of seems the best at kind of taking on this new tool. And then the vertical, we've experimented with different teams, and we've had research organizations, we had a lot of tech companies that are interested, even some financial institutions. And we do find that tech companies verticals seem to be very easy for us to go after, but also the team development companies. So the companies that have already clients that they're supporting with their framework and the different tools that they use, and they're interested in basically adding on Wisnik to our an already kind of a platform of solutions that they offer.
I wanted to ask you if you could share a recent case study or maybe an example of how you helped your customers in that kind of team dynamics, employee engagement area.
Yeah, for sure. So we've gone through different types of teams, and there's one that stands out to me to specifically point out to that problem of awareness. And so we had a team where the manager, when we first approached, and he was the one that was really interested to do something fun for his team, especially was kind of still in the midst of the mostly remote type of work environment. And we earlier in the beta trials did both the survey prior to the game, and then we would do the game, right, as our assessment, the main assessment, and then we would still do like a follow-up survey with the team. And that just gives us more validation of what we're capturing and what we're seeing in some of the surveys. And it was interesting that we have captured in the survey that there was some indication of, some dysfunction and some challenges that this team was facing. But when they played the game, and they definitely struggled within this game, we captured in their network analysis graph. And basically, a network analysis is, at a glance, you see a pattern of communication within the team. And it shows really how each team member communicates with other team members. And it indicates also, is there a lot of communication or lack of communication, and directionality as well. And we've observed for this team that the team lead was actually quite isolated from the team. And then also that there was a kind of a clique forming within the team. So a tighter group of 4 people that were really closely interacting. And we presented some of this information, and the leader at first kind of dismissed the results. And that's actually opened up another area for us, that how do we address some of the teams that struggle, that potentially at the root is not so much that they maybe don't know that there's challenges, but this kind of unacceptance, right? Unacceptance that there might be some problems. And with working through this team, and we've had another session with them, and we did notice both in just verbal communication, but also in the latest survey, that the big shift that happened was that awareness. And I strongly believe awareness is that first step towards making any meaningful change. And I think that for us, we're still an early company, so for longer term type of impact, we need a much longer time with those teams. More like a year, or if not longer, but kind of this initial indication of a shift happening was really valuable and exciting for us.
I love this. And I am really excited for my team to take part in the simulation. I will be interested to see how we fare. Hopefully good things. Again, that awareness, continuous improvement. I wanted to ask you, for others maybe who are listening, who are like, wow, this sounds awesome. How do I get involved? Can you talk about who you're looking for in the pilot programs?
Yes, so we're looking for smaller teams, teams typically that work together on some kind of outcome. So for example, if you're working in a broader team where you primarily do individual work and there's very little dependencies on the team as a whole, that might not be the best case for our pilots. So we're really working for kind of those cross-functional teams, or teams that there is very much collaborative effort. And it could be a big organization with multiple teams, and we'll just have to split the teams into meaningful groups of up to 10 people. And the pilot basically will depend strongly on what works for each individual company and each individual team. But we recommend to do these game activities at least once a month. It takes about an hour for the team to complete. So then we can really start building out this tracking of data and this improvements and how the team has taken that initial information and how it evolved basically over time. But also to really tie it to the more specific metrics that most businesses care about, which is employee turnover, their engagement, productivity. We do need to tie it into some of those metrics. And so ideally, doing those pilots, we start with kind of time zero, right, of where some of those company metrics that you measure started, and then see an improvement, hopefully in 1 year, on these key metrics.
Well, I want to have you back for sure, so that we can kind of hear where you are now. And I would just love to hear, as this HR technology and the resources and support that you're providing to workplaces evolves over time. I know our listeners, I hope that they're interested in learning more about the work that you're doing with Wisnik. Where can people go to connect with you?
Yeah, so I'm on LinkedIn, so you can easily find me, Anastasia Neddersen. But you can also visit on our website, www.wisnik.com, and there's a contact information there. And you can email me directly, anastasia@wisnik.com.
Thank you so much, Anastasia. And I look forward to my team building simulation. It's going to be fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited too. Thank you, Jessica.
What a great roundup of interviews. I am all about arming HR and workplace leaders with resources and information to help them support their organizations. This includes finding great HR tech and service providers. You can visit the show notes of this Workology podcast episode on workology.com, and I'm going to be including each person we've talked to, their LinkedIn profile, as well as their company information. Feel free to reach out to them directly and let them know that you heard about them on the Workology podcast. This episode is part of our HR Tech Insights series on the Workology podcast, and it is sponsored by Upskill HR and Ace the HR exam. This podcast is for the disruptive workplace leader who's tired of the status quo. My name is Jessica Miller Merrill, and until next time, you can visit workology.com to listen to all our Workology podcast episodes.